Hello and welcome to this episode of Self-Sovereignty. And today we have a special guest, Elizabeth Stewart. Elizabeth is a facilitator of health and happiness. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
So let's get into it a little bit.
Okay, where do you want to start?
So, why don't you provide everybody just a high-level overview of Psych-k? What is Psych-k for those that really don't know what Psych-k is?
Yeah, that's a good question. And usually even when we say it, they're like, what? It's
Yeah.
So I'm going to spell it as I talk about it, Psych-k, Psych-k. And really, it's the key to your psyche. It's a belief change modality that has physical and emotional benefit.
Okay.
For people who are asking, oh, what do you do if they don't have any point of reference for energy work? I might say it's kind of like hypnosis, but not because we're both working with the subconscious mind. We're
Right.
just using a different tool to get at it.
So how long have you been involved in Psych-k, and how did you get involved with Psych-k?
Yeah. I've been going down this personal development rabbit hole for myself for quite some time. And I was familiar with other energy modalities that I used with myself, or I would go to a practitioner for. And it was July of 2016 that I learned about Psych-k. Someone in the meetup group that I participate in is a Psych-k facilitator and did a what is Psych-k presentation. And she had somebody come up to demonstrate what we call a balance, which I now understand. And it's a change process. And I was that person. Oh yeah, I'll come up. And the goal that we balanced for was I am worthy. And it's so simple yet profound. After that change process, I was buzzing, and it's hard, how you remember things, but I remember buzzing for like 2 weeks,
Wow.
So I went home and decided I wanted to do some sessions with her. And I also wanted to learn this modality for myself because I wanted to be able to have this tool to work with myself. And so over the next couple of months, the workshop was the first basic that I took was in October of 2016. And so I took sessions with her before I went on to learn it myself, which I'm so grateful that I got to experience it and do some of that work with her before I dove in to start facilitating with myself. And then I went on to I have now attended every workshop that is available at least once.
Yeah.
And it is now what I do exclusively for work.
So at
do
what
this
point
work
did
with other people.
that's exciting. At what point did you decide, okay, I want to be a Psych-k facilitator? You had a career, you talked about your before and after stages of your career. And I really want to understand, kind of what that before side was too. But, what drove you to become a facilitator and just really kind of decide Psych-k is the way to go for me?
The way I felt was Psych-k was the answer to the question I'd been asking. That's how I felt after that first balance.
Mhm.
And it's like I fall more in love with it every day, the way it's transformed my life and others. But so to back up a little bit to introduce myself, I spent 24 years in human resources. And so how did I come along this path? It was, in a way, it was always there. And I just kind of stepped off a little bit. So when I was in college, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. So it's not the craziest thing that I'm doing this kind of work with people.
Right.
And there was a time where I thought I might want to be a psychiatrist, and then I was like, no, I don't want to prescribe drugs. And then a psychologist, but I ended up going down the path of what we call industrial psychology, industrial organizational psychology, which encompasses human resources. And I spent 24 years in human resources, but and I retired from HR in August of 2022. So not very long ago. So we've got to back up a little bit. I was on this personal development path for myself, had a good career at a great company, and, I was valued and paid fairly. And, I wasn't necessarily seeking a change, that kind of change. I was seeking many changes in my life, but at this, at the spiritual level and that sort of thing. But when I learned about Psych-k and started experiencing those changes, it felt really good. I had a practice partner for my first workshop, and it felt really good to do that with other people and to see how that transformed. So I dipped my toe in the pond those first couple months and started doing it with other people in the evenings and the weekends. And as I went on to more workshops, I was able to take on a little bit more clients on the side. And it was around October 2018 that I reduced my schedule in HR to 4 days a week, so I could see clients exclusively one full weekday and then some weekends. And so I've been doing this work with others since the spring of 2017. So that's when I'm often asked for career advice, and happy to give it. But one of the things I say, whether we're talking about someone's career or their marriage, because it's kind of the same advice, is go to something, not from something. Figure out what it is that you want and why you want it. And that's what I do when I partner with people, help them figure out what they want. And so essentially that's what happened with me. Was I wasn't running from something, I was being called to something, and just organically over those years kept turning more and more towards that.
I love that. And you call yourself a facilitator of health and happiness. So if you can kind of walk us through that, I think that's what it is like, find what you want, don't run from something, right?
Yeah. So for any of us that know Psych-k, so Steve, you're a Psych-k facilitator, I'm a Psych-k facilitator, and many people facilitate Psych-k within their practices. You could have a psychotherapist who facilitates Psych-k. You could have someone who just exclusively facilitates Psych-k. I'm a life coach who facilitates Psych-k. And so a lot of times people will use this term healer. And I personally don't use that term at all, ever, for another person. So when we talk about being a facilitator of health and happiness, as a Psych-k facilitator, I help facilitate and activate that healer within. I'm my own healer, you're your own healer, and there's examples that I can give with clients and even myself of that kind of healing that's been activated. And really happiness, like we think sometimes it's going to be an outside thing, money or a partner or that kind of thing, but happiness is an inside job. And so my motto at Guided Alignment is release stress and increase joy. And so essentially that's what we're doing is getting out of our own way to activate that healer within, and remember that happiness is an inside job and how it works to get to that.
Yeah. And so you're just facilitating a process to help those partners or clients, but we call them partners in Psych-k, but help them transition at a subconscious level.
And really everything that I do with others, that's the philosophy I have as a partner. The terms that they would use is, I'm their confidant. I'm their literally their partner walking on this journey with them, and helping them bring out the best. But one of the things is, this is a very much a do with process, not a do to process. So I don't do this work to people. I do it with them. And it is so empowering for them.
So that's perfect. And that's a great segue into, I really wanted to get into a little bit more detail about Psych-k and the process. So if we can spend a few minutes talking about that. I mean, it is an internal process. It's a subconscious mindset transformation. It's different and unique for every individual. Multiple individuals may have the same struggle, challenge, fear, anxiety, but resolving that is within them. And what we're doing as facilitators is helping them come up with that right mindset that they need to be able to transform that into alignment with a current goal, objective, situation. I think maybe if you could kind of explore like the couple different scenarios would be the differences between a condition and a situation, because when we look at those types of scenarios, you know, and I guess maybe to back up even at a higher level, what are the types of things that you see generally that individuals will come to you to discuss?
People will come for many different goals, you know, and I'm gonna call this like a service level goal, although it is a deep goal. But someone might come and say, "Hey, I saw that your clients have had success, you know, losing weight as a result of doing Psych-k. Like I've got some weight loss goals, you know." And I might call that a service level thing, meaning that we're kind of focusing on the symptom, not the cause, you know. And this is a good one when we're talking about resolutions. You know, it's January here. So what we do together is we get at the root, you know. So whether it's a condition or a situation like a behavioral pattern or something that's going on in someone's life, and let's use that weight example. That could be a condition. Like, how about we agree to call it the condition, or we could call it the situation. Maybe it's someone that's doing self-sabotaging behavior that they're recognizing with regards to maybe weight loss goals. Now, I'm going to call it body image when we're working together. And what I've learned from myself with my own goals and working with others is that weight, it can be there for a lot of reasons, you know, but it's usually not about the weight. Often it's there for protection. And our conscious mind may or may not even know what it is that we're protecting. I know that I'll call it my onion. That's an onion I've been peeling over the years, and it's been pretty interesting, the layers of protection that are there and what's been behind it. So how we would approach that is, I might ask them when certain things changed in their life. You know, when did that happen? How do they think they're going to feel when they reach their goal? What's the significance about weight, you know, or being where they are? Are there things in their life that they can't do because of it? You know, is there some way that they're benefiting by having that extra weight or not being able to do those things? You know, we call those secondary gains, a thing that you might benefit from. So whether it's a condition or a situation, we'll actively involve the participant with questions like, what do you want instead? And might create a goal statement together. And they might say, I love my body at any weight. Great. We will do a pre-test, checking in with their subconscious mind. Does it believe that that's true or not? Is it part of its programming? You know, and we're kind of like mental coders over here. And if it's, as long as it's safe, it's safe and appropriate, we will move forward with the change process. And there are many of those, and we call them balances. And then we do the process, we post-test. And when we post-test, generally that is strong, meaning the subconscious is like, yep, that's now part of my programming. The other way that we can go about it is, we might have somebody think about a memory. They may say, oh, well, when I was a kid, I used to get bullied for my weight. Say, why don't you think about that time? Think about a time in your life when you were feeling bullied. And they'll bring that up in their conscious mind. We'll muscle test for it. Often in that kind of case where they've brought up that memory, it will test weak, just like that statement example did. If it's safe and appropriate, we'll do the change process. Then we post test. And when they think back to it, it's like it's been deactivated. The emotional charge isn't there anymore. And they are now in a whole brain state when they're thinking about it, you know? Or maybe consciously, they have no idea what any of this is about. And we might follow a messages protocol and get to go on a treasure hunt about what the subconscious might be holding on to with regards to that condition or situation. And we can use that for anything. I have clients that have cancer, and ones that have had significant trauma in their life, and it can be used for just about anything.
I know I found it's always fascinating how, you know, you may start with a situation or a condition, and you find through messaging and just, working with individuals, the heart of it, the core of it is completely unrelated. I mean, it seems to be unrelated. Obviously, it is at the subconscious level, but you don't make that connection. You would never think that, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, there was one thing, I'm sorry, that I just remembered that you had asked, like, what's the thing people come for? Is there like, but the root of it, and I can say this for just about myself and just about everybody that I've worked with. The root of it, it's often about confidence and self-worth. Whatever it is that's presenting, it's often, that's the root. It goes back to like really about our own self-worth and connection to the whole of who we are, but like self-love.
That's an interesting perspective. I think the other thing I wanted to go back to something you said about taking the emotional charge out of that subconscious memory, because I think that's so interesting, because when you think about memories, at your subconscious level, these are your experiences through life. These are your perceptions of a situation, an event. And so it's not just the visual memory as you would think it. It's everything that happened that's associated with that. So it is the visual memory. It is the aroma, the smell, the odor. It's the energy, the heart rate that you feel. It could be the way your muscles tense up. And there's something there that, when you get into a situation that subconscious feeling is brought forward, it's not just a visual memory, it's everything associated with that, the emotions and energy.
And you know this, but for anyone who's listening, what the term that we use in Psych-k is transforming the perception of stress, because really it is about perception. And someone could encounter a dog, and maybe they've had amazing experiences with dogs, and for them they're in a whole brain state and they just want to pet them and get wet kisses on their face. And another person might even just hear a dog bark, but they have a fear of dogs from wherever, and that activates that fight, flight, freeze response, and their body creates a chemical response, literally wanting to protect them. And so we're talking about this deactivation, but also it works for me. It works with my allergies. So one of the things that I did very early on with that other Psych-k facilitator, she had mentioned an allergy that she had that was associated with her ex-husband, and then she also gave an example of a client whose daughter had a cat allergy, and this little girl couldn't even go to her best friend's house for the birthday party because her cat allergy was so severe. Now, at that point I had been allergic to cats for I think about 27 years. Oh, wow. And it was pretty extreme. I would get this histamine response. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to itch my face off, and it was very real. And I thought, okay, let's see if this stuff works, And in part of one of the sessions that we did together, we transformed that perception of stress. It was in fact associated to a person like that sunflower seed allergy with that facilitator and her ex-husband. And I have been non-reactive to cats since around the fall of 2016. And so I'm so excited to pet. I've always loved cats, but I didn't love the way that made me feel. And so what happened was my body made this association between stressors that were going on in my life and the cat that I had at home.
That's amazing. And I think it's important, maybe we could talk to this point for a minute, but we talk about fears and anxieties and limiting beliefs. Everybody has anxieties or fears of some kind. And it's not necessarily just those big things that we fear, but it's the things and the anxieties that happen at a day-to-day level. So you can use Psych-k to transform, things that really do have impact on you emotionally, but also little things, things that happen throughout the course of a day. Things that you're worrying about, upcoming surgeries or upcoming events,
Mhm.
even money. Folks have anxiety.
Especially money.
Yeah, let's
You
talk
know,
about that's a great.
we
Let's
have
talk
that
about money.
relationship balance. I've done the relationship balance with a partner and the energy of money. I'm not sure how many times, a half a dozen or more.
Let's talk about the relationship balance a little bit. Is that a balance that you use with a lot of your clients?
Yes. In fact, um, when we were talking prior to this, when people find out I have the HR background, often they think, oh, we want to talk about that and career advice and things like that. But it's interesting how where my focus has gone. And actually, when I think most of my clients, we end up working with their work somehow, their career goals or things. So we always sort of get there, but that's not necessarily what brings them in or what gets me super excited. I'll help them with their resume and
Mhm.
we can get real clear on what they want, but the focus really has been on relationships. And so we'll talk about how the relationship balance would come into that. Um, for myself, I have pursued the work of the Gottman Institute, Dr. John Gottman, and he has these 7 principles for making a marriage work. And so I'm trained to facilitate those, but that was something that I sought out for my own marriage to strengthen our relationship. And it's something I incorporate into my coaching practice. And we're able to use some statements that are part of Gottman's work and with the Psych-k process, you know? So the relationship balance is intended to be between either two humans or two energies. They don't have to be living. In fact, most of the time I do the relationship balance, it's between the partner and often a parent that has transitioned. And it could be with their spouse. It's always awesome if we can do it with the two humans, especially if it's a couple and they're both up for it. And those are really fun to do. But it's intended to strengthen their relationship from an energetic standpoint so that anytime you hear, see, or just the presence of their name or their energy or anything, you are in a whole brain state. And so it's this really neat ceremonial process that we do. But there's also some other balances that are great at strengthening relationships, not only with a partner, but with people you might interact with. If someone's in sales, for instance, I'd recommend that they do the rapport balance. it ensures that you're in a whole brain state with certain word categories. Like just like we might have brain dominance, right brain or left brain, we may have a certain preference for types of words, and other kinds of words we may not be in a whole brain state with it. But I think we can agree we want to be in what we'll call a whole brain state, meaning using our right and left hemispheres integrated all the time. And the other part of it is about whether someone is in rapport with you or not. And like at sales, for instance, I'll give that example. There's a lot of rejection, and so someone being in a whole brain state, even if that other person says no,
Yeah.
and so that's just some of the things that we do that impact relationships.
Well, and I know we mentioned this at the start, with it being a new year and New Year's resolutions and such. And, a lot of times people will be thinking, gosh, I got to get a different job. I got to get out of this. But and you and I talked about this off line as well a couple of times, but it's important to take a minute to take a step back and say, well, what is it about your current position, your current environment that you want to change or that you don't like? Because maybe just hopping to another job isn't the solution. Maybe there's some other work that you need to do, to get you to that health and happy state.
Yeah. There's this old phrase that says people join companies and leave bosses. And so one of the things that I find is that often the reason for wanting to leave a position is because of some kind of work relationship. It could be a coworker or a boss, but often it's about relationships. And more times than chance, when we've transformed the perception of stress with regards to those work relationships, they see what I'm going to call miracles happening, where they're eliciting a new version of that person. I had that happen with me in a previous life, where there was someone, and this is even before I knew Psych-k, but there was someone that I worked with that I thought, wow, I think I'm going to have to update my resume and leave, And then I took my own advice and said, okay, if the world's a mirror for me and this person's mirroring something, what am I supposed, like, please let me know what this message is. And it came to me, and I was a little surprised, but I thought, okay, I got it. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't 2 weeks later that person gave notice, and I just could not believe it. I did not see that coming. So, so that could happen with somebody else, or they can just feel differently. But what's going to happen is, if you decide, I want to leave that job because I don't like working with or for this person, or I want to leave this marriage because I don't like our co-creation, our interactions, if you're not figuring out why you have co-created and essentially energetically asked for that person in your life, you're going to get another one with a different face, And so that's what we do together is we break those patterns. We get you off the hamster wheel. Mm-hmm. People will use this term stuck, like, oh, I feel stuck. Well, we can never be stuck. Energy is always in motion, but we can keep recreating a pattern and be on kind of an energetic hamster wheel. So it's about getting off the wheel and creating a new pattern.
I love that. And I know you use the analogy of belt loops. So let's talk about that a little bit. Is it a one and done, or is it incremental steps along the way?
Yeah, it can be both. And often I'll get this question of like, how many sessions do I need? And I remember thinking like, oh, I could, one of the reasons I signed up for the workshop was like, I could be balancing for the rest of my life. And you know what? I will be balancing for the rest of my life. But the things I'm balancing for now aren't the same things I was balancing for 5 years ago or 5 months ago. It's peeling that onion. And so now we'll go into that belt loop at a time. So somebody can come and they can have a goal, and we can have an amazing, every session you're going to get value. Okay. And we can have an amazing session, and it can be a one and done for that goal. But I will say that this work is incremental, and it continues to build on itself. And so the more you do it, the kind of more you're going to, and I just peel your onion example, to really get at the root. Because sometimes it's going to be safe to just go and rip it open and get right to the core of something. Sometimes it's not going to be safe to do that, and we're going to need to do a layer at a time. There was this analogy that popped into my head around this time last year, was thinking about where I was at. It's like, I get to a point and then I kind of plateau, and I was doing this with clients too. That, first there's the stop the bleeding. They can barely even see where the top of the mountain's going to go. There's the stop the bleeding. So often we'll do more sessions within a shorter period of time, maybe one a week, or then maybe every 2 weeks or once a month. And in fact, the other day I just saw a client. We had started with every week and then went to the biweekly and monthly, and now I'm going to see her in 3 months, and so we're going to check in quarterly. And she's one that came around this time of year and said, I was hyper focused on weight, and once she realized that she's perfect just the way she is, the weight is just melting off of her. And she's not even trying. So wow. That's what's so funny. But when she was really efforting, that her focus on it was not making it go away. So that's one of those things where peeling her onion, but what the messages that her body had for her about weight was different than what mine has. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I got a little bit off the question, but I want to get back on. When I think about this one belt loop at a time, it makes me think about that show The Biggest Loser that used to be on TV, where the contestants would come on and they have a significant amount of weight to lose, and they would do it in a really short period of time. But in the follow-up, almost every single one of them had gained the weight back, if not more, because they hadn't dealt with that safety part or the emotional part, you know? And so that's what we're doing together. And that's what I do with myself is we're taking it one belt at a time, where you get to make changes, integrate, make changes, integrate. Because if we're honest with ourselves, if let's say you had 100 pounds of physical or emotional weight to lose, if that just came off tomorrow, do you even know, would you even know who you are? Why are people looking, you wouldn't recognize yourself, even energetically, and so that devil we know versus the devil we don't, sometimes we'll go back to that. So there's a safety component that I have found about doing it, what I'll call one belt loop at a time. And so that takes time. And I have done many, one-off sessions with people, but because they wanted to experience Psych-k, or and sometimes it was just financial things. They wanted to just pay for one and see. And but the ones who have invested in themselves and have done more sessions, and again, we don't have to do once a week for the rest of your life. In fact, I kick you out on this sometimes. I'm like, I'm going to see you in a month. You need to go be in your new energy, And so those that have invested in themselves and really, really created new habits and patterns and put that new energy into motion, they're a new version of themselves. And sometimes they'll come and say, oh, I want to be like this old version of me. But soon they realize, no, I don't want to be that person. They want to be a person that they couldn't even envision when they first started this.
That's the beauty of it, because we see folks that come in with limiting beliefs or self-doubts and fears. And these are just this labels, things that have happened to them, where, in the first 7 years of life or so, they're learning who they are based off of the perception of them from others, their parents, their siblings, their teachers, their family, and they take that, and that becomes kind of who they are. And there's some self-doubts and anxieties and fears in there, but it's not who they want to be as they get older. And so they have to peel those layers away from the onion, like you said.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna say, and it's also cool when somebody comes in, and they may have an anxiety or fear, and you do a balance for that, and lo and behold, all these other things just change too. The subconscious mind is trippy. It's like, they'll come in and they've got this whole new level of confidence and a whole different perspective, and it's like, I don't know what happened. I feel completely different.
It's a quantum change, essentially, because there kind of is no time. So we might be working on something, and whether it's thinking about the past, something that's going on right in their life, or a fear about the future, that if we're able to kind of deactivate that perception of stress, then it happens on a quantum perspective. So what's happening now, with myself and what other people have reported, is that when this trigger is presented, they aren't behaving the same way they did in the past, and it's pretty cool.
And the nice thing is they don't have to consciously be aware of that. And it's not really a habit that or ritual that they're trying to practice, because it's something that is now, a part of their subconscious. It's been transformed, that's just who they are, how they act in that type of a situation or experience. Yeah.
Well, here's kind of a example of someone that I did a one and done with. They came, they were a referral, and and they said, hey, I heard that you might be able to help with public speaking. And this is someone that was in a C-level position and had a seat at the table and would talk to boards, and so they were overall a confident person, but would get these sweaty armpits and dry mouth and, not be able to talk. And they said, I just like to feel more comfortable, especially amongst that group when I'm presenting. And we, went through the processes that we do. And one of the things that they were led to was a memory when they were in junior high school. They were in front of their classroom and they were clicking their pen while they were up there talking. The teacher started laughing at them. All the students started laughing at them, and they were so humiliated. And so by us working on this memory that was many, many, many years earlier, we were able to transform that. So then what we do is we create an action step. Okay, so when's your next board meeting? I'm gonna check in with you because you need to put that new energy into action. So I checked in with them after their next, when they said their next board meeting would be, and they said, "Oh, yeah, it went fine." Like it was, and it was like they literally like they had forgotten to perspire and get nervous like they normally would.
It wasn't even an event for them anymore.
Yeah, like they kind of forgot that we had done this work.
Yeah, and that's amazing because that's a memory that they had that I would imagine they didn't even think of that memory, for years and years and years. It was just there, and it was affecting them in a way that they didn't understand. And it probably took a while for them working with you to say, "Oh, I remember back in middle school when this happened." But it wasn't just
their conscious mind would not have made that association.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then there's some things that take a little bit more. Marriage can be tricky. And I've been married for 12 years. And I love my husband. And I'll tell you, if I don't know if it hadn't been for Psych-k, but we are continuing to grow and evolve together. And it's really cool. I know emotionally we are not the same people that came together, and we're better. We certainly fight better. Because every couple's going to have some conflict, but it's, we resolve things in a way that I don't think we were even capable of in those early days.
Cool.
So I think there are several people that would probably say that I helped save their marriage through our partnership, and some would even say that I helped save their life.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That's exciting to be able to do that kind of work and know that you're helping individuals and helping them do what they need to do, because they're doing the work. We're just facilitating, right?
And working in human resources was rewarding, but now I get to work with people in a way that just wasn't possible, So if we've got somebody that's dealing with work stress, we could recommend that they call the Employee Assistance Program, the EAP, and then they talk to a counselor. I could remind them what their benefits are if they want to talk to a counselor. But and I don't want to knock talk therapy at all, because it's valuable. But how this is different from therapy, it's often redundant, and we just, excuse the language, we get shit done. We're not going to just sit here and talk about it. It's how do you want to feel instead, and we go in together once there's permission and commitment, and we make that change. And so traumas that people have been regurgitating over years in therapy are deactivated. And I'm talking about molestation and worse. Things are different.
Truly life-changing.
Truly life-changing. And there have been things in my own life that were life-changing. There was an incident in my younger life that it was a secret that I had never told another human, and I was prepared to never tell another human. And I remember not even wanting to tell the Psych-k facilitator, and they didn't make me. They said, "Why don't you just give it a letter from the alphabet? I don't need to know what it is. All I need to know is that we have permission and commitment to make the change." And so we were able to transform the perception of stress from that trauma. And I didn't have to talk about it. They didn't need to know what it was, and now this is something that I can actually talk about. I'm not comfortable doing it on this podcast, but I do with individuals in my life. And it's really empowering,
So obviously, and we talked about secondary gain. So that's a good example of of, a situation where you're doing a transformation and it's just not as effective as you want it to be. And so there's something that's holding you back, from achieving that transformation.
Mm-hmm.
But putting that aside, a standard, just a transformation of any sort, are we talking about like 10 minutes, a half hour, a couple sessions?
Oh, yeah. And so everything's going to be everything's different. If you asked anyone who's experienced Psych-k, like every session is a little different, every balance is a little different. Even the same balance is different, can be different each time. Mm-hmm. But if you were thinking about how do I kind of even budget this, if you're like me, you're just like, oh, I'm going to be doing balances forever. Like, right. You could, because we're always growing, we kind of never get it done. But again, we're not working on the same goals. So I would say, think about it like this: for each physical health condition, kind of budget a session to explore what messages it might have and to transform them. The longer you've had it and the more things you've tried, that's a little indication that there could be secondary gains, that this condition or situation may be benefiting you somehow. So those might take a little bit more, but again, it could transform right away or not. So I gave the example of my cat allergy, which we addressed and was effective at deactivating that in a portion of a session, so I can't remember, I think we did maybe 2 balances related to it. And those were ones that took single digit minutes, there are most of the balances we use, like the 3 basic balances, I call them the knife, fork, and spoon. They take seconds to minutes and we use them over and over again, and then there's some that take a little bit longer and maybe ones that we do once in your life, like the core belief balance or the optimum health and well-being balance, where that's going to take up a whole session, but we're going to do it one time. And it's going to be like, yeah, I actually have on my website descriptions of all these balances, and I'd encourage you to go there rather than just spend the time talking about them, because Psych-k is something you've got to experience. But I want to give the example of my hay fever. Okay. I experience severe reaction, again, kind of like that histamine and the itchy eyes and that sort of thing, at a very specific time every spring. And I thought, when did it start? Well, it started, I live in the greater Seattle area. It started sometime after I moved to Washington, and I did everything I could to think about what it might have been related to in messages. But that was one that took more effort because it was its own onion. And at its core, it was related to intimacy, physical and emotional intimacy, and with someone that I had the perception of heartbreak, and then even some things in my own marriage and stuff. So it's interesting. There were some stressors that happened around that time of year when I was exposed to whatever with these things that were blooming that I react to. And so that one took time to deactivate. And it also took a little harder time to have the action item to see whether it worked, because each year around March, April, I'm like, am I going to have a reaction? Did I get it all done? It wasn't like with the cat allergy where I could just be like, hey, can I pet your cat? But what I mean is that condition took a little bit more to unravel. And I wasn't ready to fully unravel it in the beginning, if I'm honest with myself.
Mm-hmm. And just to go back to the action items, I mean, that's something at the end of the balance, we always ask our partners, like, what are some things that you can think of that you can do in the course of the next few days, weeks, or whatever, to really test this and validate whether there's truly been a change.
Yep. So a balance is potential. And so in the case with the cat, that's an easy one. I say, okay, the action item is to find a cat to pet, and in some examples, it might be maybe they did a relationship with their parent who is living but wasn't part of that balance. It might be what's something you can do, and they might say, well, I could give my mom a call, and tell her that I love her and I forgive her. Okay, great. When are you going to do that? Yeah, okay, within the next week. Great. Why don't you shoot me a note and let me know how that goes?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it gets fun for the facilitator, because I've had individuals that I've worked with that have texted me back, oh my gosh, Steve, I drove on the highway. There's 18-wheelers that passed me, on this trip. And this young lady was just so afraid to get on the highway and to be passed by a truck. She would drive the long way around on the side roads, and then a week later, she's buzzing down the highway, and it's a whole new freedom for her. And that's kind of one of the types of rewards that as a facilitator we get to see. Elizabeth, are you taking on new partners or clients currently? And if so, how do we get a hold of you?
Okay, I am. As I mentioned, I retired from human resources at the end of August, 2022. So just a few months ago. And I used the last part of 2022 to work with my current clients and to get myself really organized and transition and get through the holidays. And so now that it's January, I have the bandwidth to take on additional clients. And that's what I'm really excited for this year, is to be able to partner more and to be able to say yes. The best way to reach me is through my website. It's www.guidedalignment.com. So that's GUIDEDALIGNMENT, guidedalignment.com. And my phone number and email are on there, but you'll see information about me, the process, rates and packages are on there. I am open, honest, and transparent always.
Yeah,
and you'll see testimonials at the bottom of the page for other people that have partnered.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today for this episode. Anything else that you want to add before we close out the episode?
We've covered so much, but I just want to remind people that they have all the power from within. It's kind of like in the Wizard of Oz. But sometimes it's just nice to have your friends along the yellow brick road to to help remind you of that. And that's potentially what I am. I'm also I'm really only interested in doing this with people who have made the choice to invest in themselves. If you just want to try Psych-k, then we could do one session, but I am most interested in doing this with people who want a longer term partnership and truly ready to do the work, because I show up and I want you to as well.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I will put your website and your contact information up on the video as well.
Thank you. Good to see you again. Bye.
Nice to see you. Bye-bye.